that's the English fishing then sorted. But I understand you've been to France as well. So tell us a bit what happened when you were over in France.
Yes, just a few weeks ago I was in Le Russie. I love Le Russie. I really love the venue. Mehdi is just the best host imaginable. Brilliant guy, top venue. I like the fact that it's proper fishing. It's like proper English fishing, but with a chance of a 60, probably a 70 now, which is what keeps me very attracted to the place. And you've got to fish really hard. You've really got to work hard at what you're doing. It's not just turn up, chuck a bait out. If you want runs, if you want chance of a very good chance of several 30s, go to Old Oaks. I mean, that's a fantastic venue next door. But Le Russie is not a runs water. It's hard work.
Le Russie has an awful lot of natural food in there, so it is actually quite a difficult water. You've got to have something good to present if you want to tempt the fish there.
Yeah.
So how did you go about that?
It's a big lake, really well spaced out swims, lots of features, proper fishing. You know, it feels like proper fishing. Got there sort of late October, and the 2 weeks before we got there, very little had been caught. The lake had gone quite quiet. So immediately I'm thinking small beds of bait. There's no point piling it in. There's no point putting in 10 kilos of bait and sitting over it and waiting for it. Immediately I'm thinking small beds of bait, and spending a long time finding areas. So that was going to be the tactic. I think I had 5 bites all week. I lost a couple to hook pulls. I caught 1 small fish. As you'll know from, if you look on the Le Russie feedback site, I had a 47-pound mirror and a 58.5-pound sturgeon. And the tactics were small beds of bait. I was casting across to the far margin and using very small, tightly packed PVA bags, not the socks, the PVA bags, with a mixture of very small pellets in them and a hook bait and a short braided hook link, and casting that about 110 yards. My mate Steve Bardens at Walkers of Trowel put me onto this particular method. It's a fantastic way of fishing a small amount of bait, but at a very, very long distance. I was whacking these out 110 yards without any problem. So that was the tactic. Then a small handful of boilies around it. So you've got a bed of boilies, but a very tightly concentrated area of 1 boilie with a bag of chopped boilies and pellets. Again, the usual mixture. In this case, it was Raja and fruit trifle pellets with a fruit trifle pop-up on top. And, you know, 47-pound 3-ounce mirror. That's it. That's made my week, really. You know, I'm really pleased to get that. It took me on a complete run around again. They're mint condition, the fish in that water. It was perfect condition and a proper shape. If you have a look at the photo on the website, it's proper carp shape. It's not a dumpy, great sort of overweight thing. It's perfect condition.
What was the take like? Was it just a short bit?
Absolute screamer.
Really?
Absolute screamer. And I was fishing another rod sort of 5 or 10 yards to my right, because the swim I was in there at sort of clearings in the trees, and I had another rod in the next clearing along, quite close to where I was fishing, but just along. And it managed to pick up the other line. So the whole time I was fighting this fish, it had picked up another line, and that line was going, so the other alarm was going the whole way through. So it was a bit of a nightmare, really, just a complete tangle like you get. Really animal fight again. That fought really, really hard. So I was really pleased to catch that, but nothing compares to the fight you get off the sturgeon. The sturgeon they're just sort of machines with fins. It's ridiculous. I didn't really want to catch a sturgeon. I've caught sturgeon to over 50 before. I didn't really want to catch it. And you normally avoid the high oil trout, sort of marine halibut type pellets. I was fishing close in to my margin with a bag of crab pellets with a crab boilie, and the sturgeon still took a liking to it. And that fish probably went on a run of about 120 yards when I hooked it, because it wasn't far out that I hooked it. It was probably only about 10 yards out. It probably went on an unstoppable run of about 120 yards before it actually decided it had enough and was going to start coming back towards me. And then it then fought probably for another 15 minutes. They seem to go really, really hard to begin with, and you literally just hanging on to your rod, waiting for it to stop.
They come out the water.
They do. This one didn't. I'd lost
Right.
one earlier in the week, which had came out the water. I mean, seeing a 4.5, 5 foot long sturgeon clean out the water. It jumped twice out the water and then shed the hook. This one just bore down. So for a while you're wondering whether you've caught the biggest carp in the whole lake, which is probably over 70 pounds now, and you're thinking, I wonder. And then when it carries going on and on and on and on, and you don't get the same kind of head shake, you know that it's one of the sturgeon and you know you're in trouble. 3 o'clock in the morning trying to land one of those and avoid everybody else's lines. I called the guy who was fishing next to me and he gave me a hand hauling it out. But they're pretty impressive at that size. And, you know, if you're struggling, they're relatively easy to catch. If you go with a pellet approach, you don't need to fish very far out. You're likely to, I think 4 or 5 of the guys who were on there all caught sturgeon over 50 pounds. So.
Are you happy to sort of maintain the same flavours, or do you try and vary the flavours that you're using?
I don't like heavily flavoured, heavily glugged bait. I like the fact that the pellets are very close to the boilie in composition, but because they break down faster than the boilies, you're getting a very high attraction level without, you know, really strong. I think if you can, I think sometimes if people put too much flavour in, too much instant liquid type, I think Sean calls them in-your-face flavours. I think fish can be repelled by that, particularly in cold water conditions where they're not really kind of actively feeding, you know, intensively.
It's a bit like overload, really.
It is overload, and I like the combination of a very high attraction level, but without a lot of feed and without a lot of flavour. And I clearly, as soon as I turned up and I knew what the previous 2 weeks was going to be like, we had -2 or 3 degrees frosts the first 2 nights, first frosts of the year, 14, 15 degrees warm in the day. You know that you're going to be working really hard for whatever bites you get. And I think the pellets in the Quest range are perfect for that kind of scenario.
So overall, then, a year without too much fishing, but certainly a high success rate.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.